What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh. This is Overlanding Now, and today we're talking about the second part of the Overland build series for the Subaru Outback Wilderness. There's so many things that I've had to come up with, really, and just be creative. There is not as much aftermarket support for Subarus as there are for Jeeps. So when you're thinking of different ways that you maybe want to run your compressor, you want to mount your cell phones, different mounting options for your roof rack, that is what I'm going to be talking about today, because I have really kind of spun my wheels trying to find solutions that are achievable for everyone to be able to do the things that I've done. I want to say I'm not like a master mechanic. I don't do any of that stuff, but if you're willing to be creative and you're willing to put in some work, you'll be able to get kind of the same results. And maybe what I have doesn't work for you so well, or maybe it does. But I'm going to walk you through everything that I've done, show you where I'm at today. There are more things that are coming that I have not had a chance to get to yet. But this is a good second video, I think, to give you a little bit more information about the way that I've been able to mount different accessories and utilize what Subaru gives you and make it your own. So stay tuned. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to address was how am I going to mount my devices? So everything I have in the video today, I will put links in the description for you to go check out for yourself. Maybe it's something you want to take a look at, or maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. But if there's anything that you come up with that's better, or you think is just a better solution in general, please leave that in the comments, because I am by no means a professional whatsoever. But these are the things that I was able to come up with that worked for us. So up front, what I've used is Series 55 rail mounts from 67 Designs. Now, I've ran 67 Designs in both of the Jeeps previous to this, so I know that the product is super sturdy. And I did have an issue with one of my components, and I saw 67 Designs at Expo West, and they literally just gave me a new piece. They didn't ask any questions. They were just super cool and were like, yes, let us fix that, and they gave me a new piece. So even though I have already been running 67 Designs for a long time, I will be sure to always use 67 Designs now, just because of that type of customer service that I was able to receive just by showing up and tell them I had a broken component. Now, the Series 55 rail mounts, I've had to drill through the dashboard. So that's something that you're going to have to contend with if you want to do this. There are no better solutions. I saw a bunch of phone mounts and device mounts that clip to your air vents. That is not sturdy. The roads that we're going to be on, that stuff will fall off. I see a lot of people running them, and they claim that they're great, but there's no way that I'm going to trust something attached to my air vent. So there is a piece of plastic, which I'm going to show you, right above your infotainment screen. And it's kind of like a half circle. And if you put your hands down on that piece of plastic and pull forward, it pops right off. So I pulled that off and noticed that there are no wires, there is no air vent, there's nothing under there that I knew if I drilled through this and screwed this Series 55 rail mount to, that there would be any issues with it whatsoever. So that's what I did. I took the piece off, I measured everything out, and then I made all of my pilot holes, and then with the provided hardware, I was able to attach the Series 55 mounts to that piece of plastic on the dash, and then I was able to mount the balls and all of the different mounting accessories for the different components off that. So I use an Osmo Action for all of the dash cam recording. So I have my Osmo Action mount. I use a Garmin InReach Mini for all of my communication as well as GPS tracking with Gaia. So that also has its own mount. And then I have two cell phones. So my wife has a phone and I have a phone, and we have mounts for both of those. I was able to configure all of that stuff on the dash with really not too much effort. The only issue is you do have to drill through your dash, but the piece of plastic that you're drilling into, I'm going to guess, is probably no more than $30 from Subaru. So if I ever wanted to take this out, I could literally just rebuy that one piece of plastic, slide it back in, and it's like nothing ever happened. And that for me is a big part of this. I want to make sure that the things I do are easily removable. If I want to fix them or replace them with parts and I want to sell the vehicle, whatever it is, and they don't want holes in their dashboard, obviously, I want to be able to interchange pieces and components to make it like new. So all of the 67 design stuff that I purchased, there's tons of different adapters, and there's different balls, and there's different lengths of the attachment arms. So I'm going to put everything that I use down in the description, because quite honestly, it's going to take me some time to research it, to figure out what it is that I even used. I've had 2 Jeeps prior to this Subaru, and I still have the Gladiator. So all of the components I have, I pretty much had. So I have not had to purchase a lot of the things that I'm using today to mount everything, because I just transferred them from the Gladiator, or they came out of my wife's Jeep and they were just laying around. So I just keep boxes of all the stuff that I use. And if I sell a vehicle, I take as much off that vehicle as I can, put it into a box, and then I could use it later. I did not know that this was going to work so well, but it is extremely solid. There is a little bit of vibration in the phone when you're going down the road, so your phone does move just a little bit. But that's just because the arm, I mean, an iPhone 13 Pro Max, I think is what it's called, it's 1 pound. So you're hanging a pound off of your dashboard. If you have a smaller phone, I would tend to believe that you're going to have less vibration. And then the shorter the arm you're able to use, you will also have less vibration. So I mounted everything really close as I could to the windshield. If I would have moved that back, I would have been able to use smaller arms, and I think that would have reduced the vibration. But you live and you learn. If I want to redo this all over again and try to go at it from a different angle, all I have to do is purchase a new plastic piece from Subaru, and everything will mount back up, and I can try it all over again. So that's a comforting thing. Yes, I did drill through the dashboard, but that does not mean it cannot be replaced. So the second thing that I was really kind of messing with in my mind is I have Yakima HD load bars on top. I've been asked several times about the load bars that we use. The reason I use the HD load bars is because they're rated for 600 pounds. There are the, I believe, Thule, or maybe it's Yakima as well. I'm not sure. They have the Aero load bars. Now, they're shorter and they're smaller. They don't protrude up so high, but they're not nearly as strong. And eventually, we are going to put the tent up on top when it's not freezing cold out, when we're going camping. But for right now, I had to figure out a way for us to mount the things that I'm used to having. And I wouldn't be so worried about these things if I was in the Gladiator. And don't take that the wrong way. I'm not saying Subaru's not capable. But the reality is, it's not as capable as my Gladiator. It's just not. And that's okay. But it's going to give me a lot more comfort in a lot of different areas. So that's why we're here today. But I knew I needed to figure out a way to mount my Max Tracks that aren't actually Max Tracks. The ones I have up on top right now are an Amazon knockoff of a Max Track. I did just recently order Max Tracks. And the reason I did that is because the one thing that you can do with Max Tracks is you can create a bridge. So if you have something that is extremely off camber and you need to create a bridge, doing that with an Amazon knockoff of a Max Track, the likelihood of you breaking them is extremely high. And because this vehicle is not as capable as my Gladiator, I want to have all the additional strength that I might need depending upon the situation I get ourselves in. So the HD load bars from Yakima have a rail in the top of them, and a small plastic piece just slides into that rail to keep it covered. So what I was thinking about when I was looking for Yakima Max Tracks mount, a Yakima axe mount, and a shovel mount, they didn't have what I was looking for. So because we've had multiple Jeeps, and because I've used multiple Rhino rack platform racks on the Jeeps, I have a bunch of extra Rhino rack stuff just laying around. So what I did is I went out into my garage to see if any of this stuff would actually work. And lo and behold, the little nuts that you slide into the rack are a perfect size for the Yakima HD load bars. So every additional component that I have and every piece of gear that I need can all be mounted with Rhino rack accessories. That is a huge breath of fresh air, because I'm used to running Rhino rack. I'm comfortable with it, and finding a way for me to make that work really eased my worries a lot. So the MaxTrax mount that I have up there, you can find on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. And it slides right into the rail. You tighten the bolts down. They tighten onto the nut, and it squeezes the load bars, and that's perfect. The axe mount, what I use is the Stow It from Rhino Rack. And it's just like a locking mechanism. You just shut it, and it locks on itself, and it holds my axe perfectly in place. Now, I have a Crazy Beaver Tools. I think it's Crazy Beaver Tools. That is my shovel, and I know that there's a likelihood I'm going to need it if I get stuck in sand in this thing. So I had to get really creative with that. Luckily, I had a bunch of additional Rhino Rack pieces laying around, so I was able to kind of just conjure some idea and concept up that works really well. And everything is mounted to the rack perfect. I absolutely love the way it came out. Everything fits super flush. It's super clean, and it literally looks like the Rhino Rack stuff came with this load bar system, which is a breath of fresh air. Now, the last thing that I've been working on in trying to figure this out, and luckily I have some people on Instagram who were able to provide me support about running wires. So you guys have heard me, if you're watching any of the other videos, you've heard me talk about the trigger system. Well, the trigger system is super simple, you know, all of that, blah, blah, blah. But I knew I wanted to put in a compressor. The issue is I had to get the wires ran from underneath the hood all the way into the rear of the Subaru Outback Wilderness. It's not that that was hard. It's very time consuming. I had to tear out pretty much every single plastic panel on the driver's side of the vehicle in order to find a safe place to route the wires. Now, one thing I will give Subaru is there's a lot of extra space under there, and I basically zip tied that wire for the compressor all the way from the back, and I just followed the main wiring harness all the way up to where it goes into the control panel underneath the steering wheel. And then there's a rubber grommet. I had to poke a hole in the rubber grommet, pull the wires through, and attach it to the trigger system. So I was able to get the single ARB compressor installed in the rear of the Outback Wilderness without too much issue. The only problem is, where was I going to mount it? I didn't know what I was going to do in terms of a mounting solution. So the compressor was safe. It wasn't going to be in harm's way. But I wasn't fully ready to commit to drilling into the vehicle in a part that I could not replace. A plastic piece that I can replace is no big deal. Drilling through the pan of the vehicle to get wires through or to mount something, I'm just not there yet. So what I did is I went down to Lowe's. I picked up a Craftsman toolbox. It was like $10. It's super small. I mounted the compressor inside the plastic toolbox. I cut a couple holes for the wires. And then I got a Cobalt 3-foot leader hose for my compressor. It's the same thing I used in the Gladiator. And it allowed me to bring the leader hose through the toolbox up underneath a plastic portion of the quarter panel or the side panel inside the Subaru. And I mounted my chuck inside the vehicle. So I don't have to get under there and turn the compressor on. I can flip a switch on my trigger system, plug my air hose into the chuck, and it's all accessible all the time. Now, also, I put that toolbox where the spare tire would normally go, and I took the spare tire out. I do have something coming that is going to provide me an option for a spare tire, but that space underneath there is so large. It's so big. There's so much extra space that I can utilize for things that I very rarely need. So what I did is, after I got the toolbox situated where I wanted it, I got all the holes in it, I had the leader hose ran over to where I placed the chuck. I took some double-sided Velcro and put it underneath the toolbox and put some pressure on the toolbox to kind of fix it in place. I know that that's not going to be a permanent solution, but like I said, I'm not ready to commit to drilling through anything because I don't know exactly where I'm going to put it. I could have put it underneath the hood. I'm sure I could have found a way to mount that compressor under the hood. I've never been a fan of that. I know tons of people do it, and very rarely do I hear of somebody having a problem with their compressor underneath the hood. I just don't like it. I want it to be in its own little environment. I want it to be safe and secure from everything. So now that that toolbox has the compressor in it, it's double-sided Velcro to the bottom of the pan where the spare tire used to go. And it's not going to hold it there if, you know, the vehicle flips over or anything like that. And that's not the intention. But I was able to fasten that compressor to the toolbox. The toolbox is now stuck on the bottom of the pan where the spare tire went, and it's safe. It's not bouncing around. It's not moving around. And the reason I wasn't so concerned is because I also added all of my recovery gear back there. Now, the thing about recovery gear in this vehicle is it's a lot different than what I'm used to. I did purchase two 20-foot 3-inch toe straps. I have Rhino America or Rhino Gear soft shackles. And then I have my tire repair kit, my set of tools that I carry with me in both vehicles. I have that back there. And then I also have a come-along. The reason for the come-along is because there is no winch option for this vehicle yet. I did reach out to Warn to see if they are going to be producing a winch plate for this vehicle. They kind of gave me an answer that wasn't really an answer, which is fine. But as of now, there is no option to mount a winch to the front of the Subaru Outback Wilderness for whatever reason. So that's kind of where I'm stuck. So I do have a come-along in there. In the event that I get myself into a situation, I can attach one of my soft shackles to the tow hook on the vehicle, then use the tow strap, then use the come-along with the max tracks. So there's ways to get yourself out of situations. You just have to be willing to be creative. And that's what I did back there. So this whole process has been about a week-long thing of just really testing ideas, seeing if something worked, seeing if it was going to work for me, and then moving on to the next phase. And today I was able to get it all finished up. I can put everything back, and I can move on to the next round of modifications that are going to be just before we take off on our trip. Notice that I did not say anything about a lift yet. I've done research, but I have not made a commitment to possibly finding a lift because I don't know what this thing can do yet. And I'm going to go test it, and I'm really going to put it through its paces before I make the decision to purchase a lift. Because already I'm not going to be doing any crazy rock crawling. Extra ground clearance is always good. Some heavy-duty springs in the rear will probably be helpful. But until I see it from my own eyes and see what this vehicle's limitations are, I'm going to stick with exactly how it is right now. So I know that was a lot of rambling. I hope that you guys got a visual of what I was trying to accomplish, and hopefully it was helpful. And if you guys have anything that you'd like to add to this or any questions, please leave those in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already so you can come along for the additional adventures we are ready to go on. And we will see you guys soon. Thank you.